Let's talk about Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. For those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know, this is the 5th secret project that Brandon Sanderson has released, and it's a sequel to Sixth of the Dusk, a very popular but niche novella that Brandon Sanderson published like a decade or more ago. And right off the bat, I'm going to say that while I enjoyed this book, I did not enjoy it as much as I typically enjoy Brandon Sanderson's books. And that worries me for a few reasons. The first is that I agree with some of the critics out there that there has been a decline in Brandon Sanderson's quality since his long-term editor Moshe stepped away from editing his books. The other reason this worries me is because Brandon Sanderson has said that this book is somewhat representative of where the Cosmere is headed. If you don't know, the Cosmere is the universe in which many of Brandon Sanderson's most popular books are set, and through all these different series, like Mistborn Stormlight Archive, and a bunch of standalone books, Brandon Sanderson is telling a story that stretches across the Cosmere both in terms of space and time, and the Cosmere as a whole is kind of in this weird transition phase between fantasy and sci-fi. As technology in his universe develops, we're starting to shift more and more towards the sci-fi side, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I've personally always preferred fantasy to sci-fi, and even though I've always said Brandon Sanderson is my favorite author, if a lot of his future books are going to be sci-fi, I have a feeling that I'm going to enjoy them less and less. But anyway, that's broadly about the Cosmere. Talking more specifically about this book, there's two main characters that you flip-flop between, and another problem I had with this book is that I really enjoyed the story of one character, but not so much the other. And to be even more specific, I really enjoyed Dusk's story in this. I did not really enjoy or sympathize with Starling. It's going to take me some time to think about why exactly that was, but I think for a book when there's two main characters, or more, and you're flip-flopping between their POVs, and you find yourself consistently just wanting to get through one character's POV so you can go back to the other, that's a problem. And that's a problem I had with this book. With all of that being said, I think this book deals brilliantly with the themes it tries to explore, including found family on Starling's side, and pushing back against historical societal norms, and the theme of progress and what it means for especially older generations on Dusk's side. That last theme I just mentioned I think is done absolutely brilliantly throughout both the original novella and this book. And don't worry if you haven't read that original novella, it's incorporated as flashbacks in this book in a way that's really satisfying. I read it over a decade ago and I didn't remember anything about it, and I still found this book very enjoyable. The last thing I'll say is that I think this is one of those books that you should only read when you've read most of the rest of the books in the Cosmere. So for a lot of you who haven't read a lot of Brandon Sanderson, I can't recommend this book. But obviously if you're a big Cosmere junkie like I am, obviously give it a read. There's a lot of really crazy insight you get in this book that you've never gotten before and about the Cosmere and certain species in the Cosmere. In terms of rating, I'm going to give this like a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. Now drop a follow and go check out my Substack or else.